Another draft physics video presentation. Draft science here on YouTube. Anyway, yeah, I'm a little early. Got to do some stuff in the morning, so can't make the morning video, so I'm making it tonight instead. So it'll be some more two-slit stuff, more AB science stuff, more Dino stuff, more lying troll stuff, and wave particle duality in general, blah, 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 blah. We'll see where we go. So anyway, Dino says, after he reposts the comment he posted on my video, talking as if, he's going to get his questions answered. AB Science has any interest in answering any of the unanswered questions, which won't happen. All right, well, wow, you got some higher Patreon tiers than I realized. So I guess he thought he was going to be, a big spender, and he's not going to be a big spender compared to the other loop-de-doos that do this whole Patreon thing. These are smart people, right? And they can't figure out how, you save a lot of money if you just donate the money through PayPal. You only pay the fees once. It's a lot smarter that way. But nah, they're smart people. They can't figure that out. No, go ahead, waste the money. Pay the corporation some more money. Behave like idiots. It's okay. I obviously would never have a Patreon account because I would never want the money from somebody stupid enough not to realize it's really dumb to waste the money. Wasting money is dumb. Okay, anyway. So he says, it was disappointing that the live debate didn't happen, but I understand why they made that decision. So he actually thinks he could logically defend the decision. The decision was based on some notion that my politics, my ideology, my philosophy, my science is somehow, in some way, provably worse than the ideology of flat earthers. Flat earthers who are overt racist, a lot of them, conspiracy nutters all the way through. They fly Confederate flags and stuff. That's how backward they are. But no, I am an evil person. Why? Because I attack the Nazis and defend the Jews, and I just don't do it exactly the way they do it. I just don't believe in the cause for exactly the same reasons. I think the Holocaust was about segregation, persecution, and then at the end of the war it was about a chaos and a mess, is what it was about. And if the United States was actually losing the war against the Nazis or against the Japanese, I have every impression that the Japanese in our internment camps wouldn't have fared too well. And that's just going to be a fact. And if you want to think that that would be a statement about who America is or who Americans are, it wouldn't be a statement about that at all. It'd be a statement about how when people are losing a war, chaos sets in and things get really ugly. Okay, but anyway, go ahead. Play your little game. I don't think you can defend it logically. Okay, that they had any good reason to think I am somehow a more disreputable person than the average flat earther. I think that's a nonsensical and idiotic lie, and I don't think you can defend it with any logic. Can you actually prove that anything I've said on the subject of the Holocaust is inaccurate or untrue? Can you? No, you can't. But you don't care. Again, you'll sit there and take another shot at my integrity. All right, based on nothing, hearsay. You don't have any evidence to support their decision. You have zero evidence to support that decision. You know that, don't you? Zero. Okay, anyway. Personally, I wouldn't engage in a debate in the first place, which is just more nonsense. He'll debate as long as he can control the debate, as long as he can be certain of who's going to have to be in the hot seat. Okay, and as long as it's not him, he'll participate. Frankly, science is subject to evidence. That's irrelevant. The evidence is what's part of the debate. What actually happens in the experiment? You can't understand how that's a subject of debate. Physicists claim that light plus light equals darkness. That is, they claim that when you open a second slit, the light disappears. Do they have evidence supporting the claim? You won't debate that. You won't allow there to be a question. You won't answer the question. Do you have any evidence supporting that theory? any hard evidence supporting it. You say a photon reflects off of a single electron. Can you demonstrate it with a single experiment showing me an electron reflecting a whole photon? Or, for that matter, anything smaller than a group of atoms producing a photon in any circumstance whatsoever? No, I don't think you can. So the evidence is suspect. The evidence is part of the debate. Not just interpretations of experiments, but the actual results of the experiments. Because you'll claim the results are a certain thing, and they aren't. Okay, they can be shown not to be what you say they are. Okay. Subject to evidence and not debate. So again, of course, the evidence is suspect. The Eddington experiment is a suspect experiment. Now, if we all accept that the Eddington experiment is overtly unassailable, the facts are the facts, that they actually did see a sun move and change its position, then you could say this. But can you say that? Can you say the evidence is unassailable? Do you think the images from galactic space, outer space, of lensing, in the cosmos, can you say confidently, like you'd bet your house on it, that there's no funny business in those images, that none of them have any aberration in them caused by physical mechanical mechanisms or caused by algorithms used to process the film? You don't think it's possible that some of this stuff could be ghosts? Having said that, the different interpretations of quantum mechanics, again, so your interpretations, the interpretations by your WUI club. So the interpretations are multiverses, silly. Okay, Copenhagen, which is essentially pilot wave, so there's a stewardess and she'll show you where to sit. And bizarre, God plays dice with the random universe. Somehow random is a function of the universe. It has a random generator somewhere. They're all nonsense. Certainly unprovable. Anyway, having said that, the different interpretations of quantum mechanics is something that is a subject to debate, but you don't do that either. But that is because the different interpretations cannot be distinguished experimentally. So says you they can't. I would argue that you can abolish wave theory. So any of the theories that have anything to do with a wave, a pilot wave, or any of that kind of crap, they can be abolished. And the randomness is just God of the gap. So that's a silly theory on its face. And it can be shown that it's just scatter off of surfaces. And the fact that the two source experiments give you all the evidence you need. Because the two source experiments provide you no mechanism for causing wave functions. There's no mechanism to cause any superposition issues or any of this other nonsense. They're straight. They've never been forced by any Heisenberg principle to do something wacky. Okay, so it's just like shooting two laser beams into each other. The argument is kind of just obvious. And again, it can be answered simply by just saying every one of the radar and radio experiments that are attempting to duplicate the two-slit experiment can be explained as jamming. A simple explanation. Now, have you answered that claim? I've made the claim over and over again. You've definitely heard it by now. What's your argument? That you can prove it's not jamming? I don't think it can. As an experimentalist, so they like to call themselves stuff like that, a theoretical physicist or an experimental physicist. Doesn't mean anything really. The experimentalists can be just as wooey as the theoreticals, and the theoreticals can have a grounding in saying, show me, I want to see it. I stay away from that sort of thing. You stay away from the subject where you don't have any control, again. However, I'm usually happy to come on to a live broadcast. Well, again, this live broadcast thing is kind of mushy, right? I didn't even do that to Baldy Katz. I pre-told him exactly what I was going to argue and gave him every opportunity to build himself a case. I showed him the case I'm presenting. So there'd be no surprises, no bullshit, no getting up to speed, all of that crap. This idea of a live broadcast, what is the difference? Nobody understands a video response. Nobody knows how to listen to somebody's arguments, write them down on a piece of paper as notes, and then answer the questions that were asked or refute the statements being made. I mean, I'm overtly making a statement that photons are composite objects, that they're created over a period of time and they're received over a period of time. A photon isn't a blob, okay? And it isn't instantaneously fired, and it's not instantaneously received by matter. And that it takes multiple atoms to cause the effect. That is, it takes multiple atoms to create the composite little bits. And it also takes multiple atoms to receive the little bits and interpret it as a photon. Those are overt statements. Might just show me a piece of evidence demonstrates that's not true. However, I'm usually happy to come into a live broadcast and discuss certain topics if the timing works out. So fine. So I have to do a live room? It doesn't make much sense to me. I'd rather do a recorded Skype session where the frame rate's good and everything's fine, and you record it and then you upload it to YouTube. What's the big deal? What does the live stuff contribute? How does this live crap do anything good for anybody? I don't see it. Create a bunch of little chat that's just a distraction. All right, anyway. But Gary isn't exactly demonstrating that he is capable of having an amicable discussion. Well, so again, you're making arguments that I can prove that they're kind of silly. I mean, I've been doing this over 10 years. I have lots of conversations with live people, and they're always amicable, frankly. I mean, the ones I engineer, okay, aren't a problem. As long as you pay me some respect, I'll pay you respect. But if you're going to come on my videos and say I misunderstand, and you're not going to show me how I misunderstand, and you're going to make some accusation that I somehow haven't researched enough, or I'm not aware of Wikipedia, if you're going to insult my intelligence, why shouldn't I find that insulting and react appropriately? I should, thank you for the insults? Like Electric Boom. I should thank Professor Lewin for saying I'm just as dumb as a flat earther, just to keep the peace, just to make everything all okay. I should pretend somebody who's wrong is right. No, I'm not going to do that. I am not really interested. Yeah, that's clear. You're making it clear. You're not really interested in physics, okay? You're interested in having conversations about inane nothing. You can't even reasonably attack Ken Wheeler, an easy, big, fat, sitting target, and you can't even take some really good shots and hit him in the forehead. Instead you sit there and say, well, let me show you my silly model by comparison to your silly model. That was a really bad idea, by the way. Saying I'm going to tell you what magnetism is, when your explanation was just as evasive and wooey as it could be. All right, and engaging someone who refuses to entertain the possibility. So this is more statements by you. What's the proof of any of this lack of willingness to engage in the possibility? I am wide open to things that are possible and plausible. You're saying your opinion should be my plausibility, that somehow I have to have your opinions. Well, that I don't have. That they may have misunderstood something. So again, where have I indicated I'm incapable of being shown that I'm misunderstanding something? What I have shown is every professor on the internet, okay, being incapable of describing a two-slit experiment accurately. That's what I've shown. And you're saying I'm going to cast doubt on my credibility and my understanding, when I've shown that they're the ones who don't understand. They have no clue. They can't draw the experiment right. They can't draw the right pattern. They're not even close, okay, to anything called accurate. And yet you're claiming I'm the one who misunderstands, when I've proven they're the ones who don't understand their own foundational experiment. They have no hands-on experience with it, clearly. They've just taken everybody's word for it that all this stuff happens. That these detector experiments were done. Nobody's ever done a detector experiment. It'd be ludicrous. Detecting a photon? That would be... You'd have to be double retarded to even try to do that. And an electron is almost as small as a photon. It's almost as nothing. I mean, in some sense, a photon is gigantic compared to the size of an electron. So you're even more unlikely to find something to throw at electrons to see them with. Besides the fact that they're charged, which makes it really hard to do any kind of slit experiment. But so what are you going to make your slits out of? Magical stuff? Non-protons and non-electrons? Antimatter? I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all. You really think they can do a two-slit experiment that simulates the conditions of a photon experiment with electrons? You really think so? I will have to look at mechanical gravity. So this is, the Dino is calling it mechanical gravity. I don't know. I've never heard it stated that way. It's either just called particle gravity, but whatever. And again, the real professional version of it would just be called Mach gravity. It just has to do with energy coming in from the outside. The universe is full of energy, cosmic background radiation style energy, and it pushes everything together. It seems like an interesting topic, and the flaws. So he's already projecting that he can somehow, again, he's going to cite what? The Wikipedia page? Is that all he's going to do for you, Dino? He's going to do you a video where he's going to read the Wikipedia page. All right? He's not going to tell you anything that hasn't already been refuted by me. All right. Flaws in the idea give the excellent opportunity to talk about other topics such as particle physics and thermodynamics. Yeah, the whole thermodynamic thing is the one I'm trying to get you people interested in. Because there are different ways of understanding how momentum is transferred in the universe. And as I've sort of pointed out, if you think about the force actually having to do work to move matter, you could understand that, wow, if force actually has to do work to move matter, that means there's a deficit in the strength of the force every time a piece of matter is moved. And therefore, where there's a lot of moving matter, there's going to be an absence of force because it got used up moving the matter. Yeah. Very simple argument that creates gravity. Yeah, really easy. It's a really easy way to create gravity. Anyway, I have been thinking of doing something on the history of gravity. So, and how would you do this history exactly? I mean, better than the people who've already done the history. What added value are you going to contribute? I mean, besides, okay, Fadio suggests the idea. Lesage bought Fadio's papers after his death. And then he tried to repackage the idea with a couple of improvements. And certain people, like Newton, liked the idea back, before Lesage, Fadio. But obviously, there's no documentation of where he disliked it. Became disenfranchised, and they became disenfranchised with Fadio because he was a religious cult member, and not that Newton wasn't a nutty religious kook too, but that was a problem. So there was some politics connected to it that you don't know whether that had something to do with it or not. But Newton was sort of on that side, let's just say. Well, anyway, but the history is kind of messy. There's no obvious statement behind the fact that in the Fadio papers and in the Newton papers are signatures on Fadio's papers by Newton and Fadio's signature on papers by Newton, vice versa. So it's clear this was a player, a potential answer. But I have to concede that my understanding of GR is limited at best. Well, GR doesn't have much of a history, right? So that one's sort of easy. I mean, you don't have to go back 300 years to do the GR thing. By virtue of my focus having always been on condensed matter physics, which is, I guess, whatever. Condensing sort of means cooling, so, you're getting into the whole Einstein, de Broglie, Jello, whatever the hell it's called. So anyway, sure. Yeah, that's physics. I will get there soon enough, though. Anyway, many thanks for the support on Patreon. So this is he. So Dino, showing that he's so much more mature than me, has now paid somebody for weaseling out, okay, of even a simple thing of answering a few questions or providing a link to a video. He gives you a crappy reference to a silly web page that isn't even the right diffraction math, and you pay him for it and reward him for it. And you wonder why this isn't working too well. Well, that's why it doesn't work too well, is because idiots like you do idiotic things. You reward people for being weasels and cowards and pussies and obnoxious, arrogant fucks. So, bravo. You sure showed me. Alright, it is a huge help. Okay, yeah, helping you where? So you show me where he helps you, okay? So please point him out. You know, you don't need to comment on my videos except for one purpose. Come to my videos to explain to me how AB Science improved your understanding of something. Because I'm going to guarantee you he's never going to do it. Every explanation he gives you is going to be so full of bullshit, okay? And you're going to smell it right away. Okay, he's just going to say, well, I have an equation that solves that. All right, it's going to be a bunch of shit. It's going to be stuff 8 pi divided by the square root of your left foot. Yo, it's going to be horse shit. All right. Indeed, the different tiers got me a bit high. The different tiers got a bit high. I originally intended on nothing above $15 pounds, but people requested higher tiers. Oh, they couldn't do double 15-pounders, or they couldn't give you 15 pounds on Patreon and then maybe give you 50 pounds on PayPal, and you'd actually get more money. You know, they couldn't even figure that part out. Well, I'll be a full Patreon member, but if I want to give more money, I can just send you a PayPal directly. You people are pathetic. This is intelligence in action, right? These are the people who think they're really fucking smart. Whew. All right, so anyway. So this is AB Science to Dino. Well, I have written 5,000 words on the topic so far. So everybody's going to get bored. How much you want to bet he gets bored? Okay, yeah. Yeah, how much you want to bet he gets bored? So, no, I got bored. You know, especially when I got to the part where I had to make a rational argument that Gary hasn't already refuted. Yeah, that's the part where I really got bored. All right. Let's see. Topic so far, and just need to chase some mathematical formulation. So there we go. Gravity couldn't be simpler, right? It's just the opposite of a fucking goddamn light bulb. So what mathematical formulations do you need? Even the argument for drag is just so obvious, you know. So, as I've sort of pointed out, gravity already exists. So it's not something like somebody, you know, another body shows up and it makes gravity. So, you know, like something doesn't have any gravity until it shows up, and then at the speed of light, the gravity communicates back and forth. No, that's not how gravity works. Okay, so there isn't like there's a mass here, and then it's making no gravity, right? Because there's no m times m. You know, so you can't do you know, Newton's math because there's no other m, so I can't do the math. No, it's still the same gravity. Okay, the force is just combining what two things are doing to each other. So you don't need the other m. You can just do one of the m's, and you'll get the right answer. The gravity's already here. The mass on, you know, moving this way, and the mass moving this way, and the mass moving this way, they're all creating the gravity already. And so when something shows up, it's not like it goes, I'm gravitational, here's how much gravity I have, and I'll send you the message. And then you send me back a message, well, this is your gravity in response. And so it's not like you have to worry about the fact that this is orbiting and that the gravity won't know that the object is in a new place and all that kind of, none of that's a problem. The gravity's already being made by the stuff on the Earth, right? The Earth is really big. It doesn't need me to tell it to make gravity, okay? I don't need to show up and stand on the Earth, and now the Earth has gravity because I'm standing on it. No. So anyway, that argument is just nonsense. The aberration argument doesn't mean anything. So the only argument that really means anything, right? So we just know that gravity is this light bulb thing. This is gravity. This is a fair description of Einstein's gravity right here, okay? This is a fair description of what bent space is. It's a three-dimensional ball that, unlike a ball that just had spikes all the way around it, and the spikes are going in, it's just a flow in, just like a light bulb, except exactly the opposite. So all you do is take the light bulb arrows, and you just turn them around the other way. Okay, light bulb's inverse square law, gravity, inverse square law. So just turn the little photons the other way around. That's gravity. Couldn't get simpler. Simple equation. It's really simple. All right. And then the only problem with this mock gravity, as Feynman pointed out, was that if you have a field of gravity, you know, all these little arrows going in all directions, causing this pressure, well, when you moved in to the field, you would be moving away from energy going the same way as you, all right? So you wouldn't get hit as much in the ass, and you'd plow into more energy. You'd get to it sooner, right? Because I'm moving, I'd get to this energy before. See, it would have taken it a while to get to me, but I moved here, so now it got to me sooner. So you'd be moving into more force, and the more force would have to slow you down, because the force is causing gravity. The force is moving your electrons and protons. So obviously, if you're plowing into that, well, that's drag, and that's wouldn't work. The Earth couldn't keep orbiting the sun if it was dragging through ether. So as the Earth was spinning around the sun, it would be hitting more crap in this direction and hitting less crap in this direction. And so it would slow down and, you know, come to a stop, because it just eat up all of its velocity, because it's plowing into more sand, or whatever you want to think of it. Even if there were dead bits of sand, and you had to plow through them, you can understand the sand would slow you down. But these are bits that are actually moving, so the ones you hit are going to be moving against you. You're not going to hit ones that are moving away from you, because they're moving away from you at the speed of light. You're going to hit the ones coming right at you more often. So it's a real argument. The trick is, well, electrons and protons, guess what? They drag to a death. They don't go anywhere in real space. In real space, you can't shoot them through space, and you can't shoot them to Mars. You can't shoot them anywhere. They suck at going anywhere. So they are actually dragged to a halt. In accelerators, they have to put in zillions and zillions of volts to keep the things moving, because they'll stop. If they don't keep pumping energy in, they'll just stop moving. They have to keep pumping them with energy to keep them going. You know, and you know, simple experiments can prove all of this. You can take the, measuring the mass of the electron experiment, you know, and where you just make a loop of electrons. Well, the electrons just don't keep looping. They run out of steam. If I put the voltage on, this pattern, this little plasma is created. As soon as I turn the voltage off, guess what? Nothing's happening anymore. The electrons aren't stuck in here, just going around and around and around. I can't create a trap for electrons. Can't hold them, can't keep them, can't do anything, because they all drag to a halt. So it is a real thing, and the trick is that the fancier bits of matter, the helium nucleus, has a pattern, an arrangement, where it has a little engine. You know, the force bounces back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and the more pressure it pushes into, coincidentally or incidentally, the closer these objects are forced to each other. And that means, like ping pong paddles, when I make the ping pong paddles closer and I have a ball bouncing between them, and you can understand, if the ball's bouncing the same speed and I make it closer, it's going to bounce even faster, and it's going to hit more times. So the tighter the more I compress the helium nuclei, the faster it goes against the force. The more pressure it applies in the forward direction. So it's like it becomes proportionally more energetic the more you drag it. So the more drag I put on it, the stronger its engine gets. And that works. That explains why drag isn't an issue, because matter is full of those little nuclei. And those nuclei just point in the right direction, and when they're all pointed in the right direction, the same direction, you're going to have velocity. So if I throw a wrench into space at the right location and it heads right for Mars and just keeps flipping and turning, going right to Mars, it's doing it because it's got a bunch of those in it, those little engines. And it actually is being dragged, but the drag is just creating more energy in the nuclei, and therefore it keeps going. It overcomes the drag. Simple explanation, solves the problem, and now you have a gravity model that makes sense, rather than nonsensical crap about some bent space thing that isn't even, you're saying really ether, but you don't have any explanation for how the ether exists. It doesn't have any form, it doesn't have any substance. They have a theory of gravity, and there's no energy. It just magically comes from nowhere. They have a theory of magnetism, no energy. It magically comes from nowhere. Why don't you ask him, AB Science, why don't you, Dino, why don't you ask him, where's the energy come from for gravity? Okay, where does bent space provide an energy formula? And they'll say, well, we borrow it from the future. You see, you have to give the energy back when you leave gravity, so yeah, we'll borrow it from the future and then we'll give it back to you later. That's going to be his answer, some kind of crap. All right, anyway. All right, 5,000 words, and I need to chase some mathematical formulation. So again, there's no, the math for gravity is so simple. What could he possibly be chasing? Once I have that, I should be able to carve a nice story out. Well, it won't be a story about particle gravity, because particle gravity really doesn't need mathematical formulations. It's so simple. You can draw what a light bulb is doing. You make a little thing that looks like a light bulb, but you just draw rays coming out of it. There. You've done all you need to do. You've explained the geometry. Okay, anyway. Funny name. You are wasting your time. Dino is an active member of Gary's cult. So, obviously I don't have a cult. I'm clearly not at all interested in anyone following, okay, or being a member. A member. You will not change, so not change his mind regardless of how reasonable he pretends to be. So again, change his mind to what? To believing what? That these wooey fables about entanglement and two things being in the same place and antimatter and dark matter, that all these little fables, these unprovable nonsensical answers, these God of the Gap mush, isn't just that God of the Gap mush. Okay, you may not believe me, but I guarantee you that he will keep defending his cult guru no matter what you say. So again, clearly I haven't, in no way am I his guru, because as I've pointed out, he's pretty much insulting me at every opportunity. So this is so irrational. Funny name. But this is where he gets serious, okay? So here's an example. This is obviously the cowboy. I've given you fair warning that you're going to have to explain this behavior to a judge eventually. And you're just basically giving me more and more evidence that you don't care about the truth and you don't care about the consequences of what you're doing. It's clearly malicious behavior. You're being warned that this is slander. You're lying. You have no evidence to support these claims, and it's illegal to make claims you can't support with evidence or reasoning. You have no good reason to believe what you're saying is true. You have no evidence. Okay. So he says, this is a video where Gary borrowed without giving credit. So this is more just, that's an overt lie. I never borrowed anything. And I certainly didn't take anything without credit, so this is just more lies. The idea of projecting the double slit pattern on a circular screen. So this is a Dissenti video. So I went back and I looked. Ethereal Mechanics is called. It's just crap. So I went back to look at the date it was published, because I was actually subscribed to Dissenti's channel. So I probably did see this video. And I actually did a video response to it. So, I mean, this is the joke of this whole thing. Now, just, listen to my impression when I'm watching this part, and see if you think there's any indication I hadn't thought of the idea of a curved screen before. Now, the other catch is Piero will probably remember that I talked to him about it like 10 years ago. I mean, like 10 years ago, we had some vague conversation in Stickhammer someplace, and this subject came up where I said, you know, they don't even project the pattern on the right screen, because to really see it proportionally, it has to be a curved screen. Now, back then, I didn't realize that what the curved screen really proves is that the pattern isn't infinite. Okay, that the pattern is really just a finite pattern, that there are, in fact, only a certain number of bars. So I really should go back to the Frunkenfracker diffraction page where they talk about the pattern going infinitely. Because it's such a lie. It obviously can't be infinite. When you put it on a curved screen, you understand that, oh yeah, it's just this, and it's all done. That's it. The pattern is just this. The pattern can't go forever in that direction, because it's being created in space on these curved lines. That's how it's actually being projected. It's being projected this way, okay, by equidistant from a point here. Equidistant from this point is where it's being projected in space. So no matter where I make this curve, it doesn't matter where I make the curve, but I have to make the curve to see the pattern as it actually looks. But I didn't realize that 10 years ago. I didn't realize that the curved screen proves it's not an infinite pattern. I don't think I realized that. Can't even say for sure. I mean, I might have, but I don't think I did. But anyway, I've had this conversation even before Piero. It wasn't it wasn't the first time I talked about it with Piero. I talked about it like 20 years ago with somebody. So this is just such a lie to say I need to steal anything from anybody. And you just don't have a right to do this. Now the point is that this is a lie. He has absolutely no evidence of any theft or anything like that. And the AB Science guy believes it. Doesn't really matter, huh? It's an interesting topic and I'm happy to cover it. He won't cover the topic, so that's the funniest part. Of the fact that even all these physicists, of all these videos on the internet, not one of them, except mine and DeStinti, even talk about the idea of curving the screen. And DeStinti's obviously doesn't go into much elaboration, so he doesn't say much on the subject, frankly. But anyway, so we'll just play this little clip of me here, where I just point out how... let's see, it was back here somewhere, actually. Alright, somewhere in here. Bending the screen shouldn't consolidate that much unless he's bending a screen that's 2 inches away from the slits, which... See, at a distance, bending the screen doesn't mean much, right? So if I bend the screen at 10 feet, you sort of understand that, if I'm projecting this image 10 feet, and I'm only taking up a foot, or even 3 meters or 4 meters or something, the curvature at 10 feet is a very slight curvature. So almost the whole pattern that would be visible, where there's enough photons, would fit on a curve that barely curves, right? It's almost flat. It's not flat, but it's almost flat. And the place where the curve really comes in handy is the closer you get, then the curve becomes more and more necessary, because it's fixing a lot of distortion that would be happening when you're closer. But the further away you are, it becomes less and less relevant. And the only thing really, it's visibly different. I mean, obviously it's good to watch a movie on a curved screen. It doesn't completely ruin it if you don't, but it's better if you do. But again, the real point is that to understand the pattern has limited elements. That there's only a certain number of elements. The same number are out here. The same number are out here. Okay, the elements are all the same number of elements. And that's what the curve allows you to understand, is that there's really just 0 degrees to 90 degrees. There's no infinite pattern. There's just a certain number, and it's all proportional. So no matter where I draw the arc, there'll be the same number of bands wherever I draw it. It's the same number, same number, same number. I don't think this is the right part. Let's go back a little. Yeah, here. More volume.
Okay, so that's yes, that's the right way to view it. Is at equal distances, but again.
So does that sound like I never heard that before? So that's the right way to view it at equal distances. So does that sound like I've never heard the idea before? I never heard about viewing on a curved screen. Do I look surprised or wow, that's incredible? I never even thought of that.
He's put into his software
right?
Because the distortions are insane in terms of bending the projection screen shouldn't create as much distortion.
So he made a simulation. It's really simulating the projection from very in the near field. So I didn't realize that until I watched it a second time. He only has the distances and wavelengths of light, so it really is way too close that he's viewing the pattern at.
As it creates. So yeah, I think we just jump through some of this.
Why the screen is this screen out here is going from minus 180, minus 90 to plus 90 as far as azimuth goes. Okay, so that is the.
Yes, that's the right way to view it. Is at equal distances. But again, like I said, I don't even know why he has these green.
So that's him saying, basically that somehow I stole the idea. When no. This is I have a vivid memory that somebody actually did make a video, and this is more than 10 years ago, okay, where they illustrated it on a curved screen. Like there's an actual image of the curved screen. It might have just been a web page. All right, so it's clearly not something somebody didn't talk about 10 years ago. So did Stinty steal it from some other guy that he didn't give credit to? How far are you going to take this moronic argument? And again, I'm asserting plainly, okay, that you have no evidence. You have zero evidence, and you'll never have any evidence that I stole anything from anybody. And I can, if I was forced to, I will be able to prove that I talked about that subject years ago. Because it's in a Stickam room somewhere. It's in one of the videos somewhere. All right, you're just a fucking liar to make this suggestion, and you get away with it. And, the unprepared, like AB Science, who apparently don't know how the internet works, will sit there and give you actual consideration for your outlandish and silly accusation. You can just make up fucking bullshit, and these assholes will actually read it and actually consider it as if it was a real assertion being made by some credible human being, when it's just a fucking lie. So I can prove damages. I can prove how you're damaging my integrity, okay, with these fucking lies that you're spewing, you fucker. And so don't complain, okay? Just don't do any whining or complaining, all right, when you have to explain to a judge how you can have any evidence whatsoever to back up what you're saying. You are a fucking liar. You've done it thousands of times now, and you keep doing it in spite of the fact that I've done exactly what a judge likes, which is I've warned you, you're violating my constitutional rights. You're a fucking liar. I should be allowed to duel you and blow your fucking shitty brain out of your fucking head. If we had decent laws in this country, all right, I'd be able to call you out, you liar. It's really despicable. All right, very irritating anyway. So anyway, this whole wave particle thing. So again, let's just understand. Let's just go through some of the simplest arguments that just prove their theory doesn't make any sense. It just isn't going to work, this wave crap. So I pointed out that the water experiments are not consistent, right? They don't prove. They have just as much. They disprove. They indicate just as much as they counter indicate. Okay, so they're exonerating evidence just as much as they're incriminating evidence. So the single slit is clearly exonerating evidence. Okay, we're free. We don't have to be a wave because it just doesn't do it. So water and sound do this. Okay, no interference. This is what water and sound do. All right, there's just no doubt about it. No interference pattern. No bar of sound, bar of sound, bar of sound, and certainly no, in the water circumstance, it's no pattern at all. It just hits and produces a consistent amount of pressure as the wave catches up to the distance. No pattern. All right. And clearly in light, clear pattern. Clearly something's happening. They'll sit there and, like I said, the math clearly does this. This is what the math clearly does. It takes this distance right here and it compares two vectors from those 2 points. It takes a vector from here and a vector from here, clearly indicating this would have to be the wave center here and a wave center here. Now, does that make any sense? So flat waves come in this way and somehow they turn into this. Now they'll say the word Huygens, but there's nothing in Huygens that makes waves go over the edge. There's nothing in Huygens that says you make two waves. Absolutely nothing. There's no Huygens reason that all of a sudden I go, well, here's the middle. Let me put a line here. And then I'll say this cancels with this, and this cancels with this, and this cancels with this, and therefore I can abolish everything else except for the 2 points that will be left over equidistant from the line. But their math is clearly, this is the variable, the surfaces. All right, case 1. Case 2, the double slit. Now, the double slit in water, okay, will create a pattern, okay, but it's kind of a big pattern, okay, kind of boring. That's it. That's all the pattern you'll get, all right? But we know in light, that's not the pattern, right? In light, in most circumstances that you can create, if you randomly made a circumstance, 99% of the circumstances will create a pattern that looks something like this. Now, there could be 7 bars here, there could be 15 bars here, there could be all kinds of numbers, but it'll look like this, okay? The pattern will be on, okay, and then off, right here, big giant off, and then that off will repeat again over here and repeat, theoretically. All right, now the math, it works, okay, the front and harder, okay, the point sources are here and here and here and here. They're the surfaces. And the surfaces, there's a vector from the surfaces, and these 2 outside vectors will predict these little bars, and these 2 inside surfaces will predict this. Okay, so the inside surfaces are creating this. The outside surfaces, the mathematics creates these little bars, and all you're really saying is when this contribution is in phase with this contribution, you get light. And when one of them is out of phase, you get no light. So in this case, the contributions from here are out of phase. So all you have is the contributions from the little node, and the little node isn't enough photon to make light because it didn't get a contribution from here. You have to have a contribution from both. If you don't have all 4 in phase, no light. 4 in phase, light. And that's it. Explains the pattern. Completely consistent with scatter, completely consistent with a particle theory, completely inconsistent with anything called a wave theory. How can you draw the waves in those locations? So again, I'd have to put the waves here, and here, and here, and here. So why do you think, okay, there's any rational reason why plane waves go in and they create that slop? How would they do that? Did the waves go right through the impediment and create a point source here? The center of the wave is here. The center of the wave is here. There's no reasoning that causes that. It doesn't make any sense. All right, so I've already kind of gone over the 2-source experiment and the fact that none of those experiments have any validity at all. So you just tie 2 sources together, send in the same frequency, all right, and then you receive it over here with a receiver, and you'll get a bar pattern. You'll get, oh, I can see it, I can't see it, I can see it, I can't see it, I hear it, I don't hear it, is what it comes down to. And so the theory is that somehow these 2 waves, okay, are interfering with each other. Okay, but the fact is, you know, I can draw the same exact same geometry as their wave theory. The exact same geometry of just using lines and vectors will tell you that you're sending 2 signals at the same frequency to the same location out of phase. And if you do that, you won't get anything. Nothing. Okay, you won't be able to receive it on the receiver. Doesn't mean energy didn't hit here. Lots of microwaves hit here, but you can't see them, okay, because you can't receive them, because you need a receiver to see them, okay, and you don't have one. See, there's nothing that's interfering here. There's no interaction between the two, and all you're really doing is just jamming the receiver. And if it was light, you would be able to see it. If it was two laser beams, you would be able to see the laser hitting the spots, which there wouldn't be any pattern, because there's no real obstruction. There's no slits. There's no real barrier to cause any wave functions or any superpositions or any Heisenberg problems. So it's clearly just jamming. So wave theory dead again. And then, the argument I've made before over and over again. These people know this. They have this drawing of a photon. It's this stupid magnetic and electrical bullshit. But they never tell you, well, how much of this is a photon? How many of these do I need to call it a photon? Is there some number? Are you telling me it can be any length? I can have any amount of this stuff and it's still, like if I had this much, it's the same thing as if I have this much? I mean, they have no theory. They'll give you absolutely zero evidence on length of a photon. And then, as I've pointed out, the polarization of a photon is proportional to its wavelength. So the wavelength and the height are the same. So, if you saw it coming for you, it would look like this, like really thin, really tall, okay, and it has a length coming out. So I've given you the example of an envelope. See, an envelope has a shape, and I could say that the photon really isn't the envelope. It's just that there's pieces moving in what you could define as an envelope. Okay, that they're a little bit out of order, flying perfectly parallel, because they were all fired by atoms on a substance. Atom, 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 atom. The atoms all fired to create the photon. All right. But anyway, they give you nothing. So they don't explain polarization. Now I've explained to you why the three polarizing filters can refix the photons, and explains why when you take polarizing filters and you put two filters this way, okay, and you get zero light. And I stick a third filter in this way, and all of a sudden I get 30% of the light back. How is that possible? If this filter killed 50% and it's gone, it's dead, and this filter kills the other 50%, how can I reconstruct any of the light? This is too much, okay, to recover. So if I'm recovering 30%, I have to somehow be fixing the photons that got killed here. So they didn't get killed. No, the 50% got broken. And what I did is I fixed 20% of those, and now 50% can, when they go through the second filter, 20% of the fixed ones, well, it have to be the 30%, will now be able to get through the second filter. But that's all I did. I fixed them. I put them back in phase. So, and I've explained that it's easy enough to understand that all the polarizing filter is doing is this. Okay, it's a piece of plastic. And so it has two layers. So this is the first layer, right? So this is 1x layer. And this ends up being 2x layer. So if the photon hits this part, it goes through 2x. And it gets phase shifted twice. 2x phase shift. If it goes through just one, then it's only phase shifted 1x times. So, only 90 degrees. And so it gets 180 degrees of a phase shift. It goes back to being in phase, out of phase, in phase, out of phase. And that's all that's all the film is really doing. It's just changing the phase of the little bits of the photon. So the different bits go through, and so, a single photon in the particle idea would just be, presume they're out of alignment a little. But, one bit goes through here and it gets shot this, it's polarization, it gets out of phase. So now it's out of timing. So essentially it's slowed down and it's been retarded in its progress. And so you could argue that it's been moved to this position with 1x. So 1x moves it to this position. And then if I go 2x, I move it back even one further back. And so you can see how it could reconstruct the pattern. Now, if this photon was lost because it got kicked out of another photon, you could understand that I can combine this photon that's out of phase with this other one that's out of phase, and I can reconstruct a whole photon again. So I can just break it and remake it. So particles work. Waves don't stand a chance here. There's no chance. So again, the polarization of the photon is thousands of atoms, at least 1,500 atoms of polarization. So it's really big. Electron is a tiny thing. It's not only just 1/1500th of the size of the polarization, it's a lot less than that in size. But let's just say it was 1,500 times smaller than this. All right, let's just say the electron was as big as an atom. You still understand that this whole thing can't hit that one electron. There's no way this whole thing can hit that and not hit any of the other electrons right next to it. The 1,500 electrons that are right next to it. It only hits this one, and only this one sends back another photon. You've got to understand how that's got to be nonsense. That it really means that you have to understand a photon as a composite object, and the photon actually hits more than one atom. Okay, the different pieces hit different atoms. The different atoms added up, and the different atoms say electricity. I saw a photon. That's how it works. That theory works. This theory sucks, and this theory sucks even more. That's probably enough. It's done, okay? It's been revealed. There's no magic in the two-slit experiment. It's simple scatter vectors from the surfaces. I put a coin in front of a light. It's simple. It's just about scatter at the surfaces. The surfaces are covered with electrons. Electrons scatter photon. They scatter the composite elements of the photon. That's a known fact. The whole thing is just a mechanical consequence. There just isn't any woo. There's no magical waves. There's no Huygensing. There's none of that crap. Let it go. So let me check my notes. I might have wrote down something. Wave theory doesn't work. I point that out. Photons are a composite object, so that's something I'm quite certain I can prove. Okay, and that it takes time to make one. This is a key event, right? Because another one of the trolls, well, the cowboy, was making some video on relativity, and he's talking about a photon shooting across a spaceship or something. Again, a photon is made by an antenna, just like all the other electromagnetic radiation that has to come out of an antenna. A photon also has to come out of the antenna, and an antenna is just a row of atoms. And the row of atoms are just, the electricity passes through them at the speed of light. So it takes time to make a photon. It has to shoot one bit, and that one's traveling. And then it shoots a second bit, and this bit's that far. And then it shoots a third bit, and this bit gets this far, and this bit gets this far. And then it shoots a fourth bit, and then this bit gets this far, and this bit gets this far, and this bit gets this far. That's the polarization. Okay, and that's the creation of the photon. And this all takes time. It takes time to make a complete photon. If I move the emitter in this direction, the same direction as electricity, obviously you can understand that now the photon's polarization is going to be outrageously huge, because these atoms are moving this way. So when it fires the first one, the second one's going to be a lot further away, and then the fourth one's going to be a lot further away, so the polarization will be ruined. It'll be way too big. Now, doing it the opposite way, right, moving it this way against the electricity, who knows if you can even do that physically. We don't know that if you can actually make electricity travel through. We never tried moving a conductor and saw how fast the electricity moves through the conductor when it's moving against the electricity. So we don't even know if we can do it, but obviously that would create a circumstance where the polarization would be even finer. And so now you might have some chance, because everything would be fired quicker, in the same space essentially. This atom would move into where this atom is, and so they'd all be firing the photons much closer to each other. And so now the polarization would be much stronger. So that's another point I didn't raise, but they use the whole photoelectric effect, and they say, well, frequency is the god. Frequency is causing the extra momentum, and they've even made frequency equal momentum. they actually says this. They say that mass times velocity equals frequency, which is just horseshit. So anyway, it's just absolute garbage. But of course, the difference between red light and blue light isn't just the fact that the frequencies are different, right? The blue light's doing this, okay? The red light's doing this. So you can understand that more stuff's hitting you in an amount of time. But more critical, okay, is that the red light is spread over this big polarization, and the blue light's polarization is much smaller, right? So the blue light hits fewer atoms. Its polarization, it's more tightly compact, so it hits fewer atoms, which means it's more likely to hit an electron, where this polarization is very big, so it not only has less energy bits per unit of time, it's also hitting a bigger surface, which means less likely to hit an electron. That's why blue light looks stronger than red light. But it doesn't have the bits that themselves aren't more energetic or more powerful. Obviously, you can fit more bits in a less distance at the higher frequency. So obviously, it has some more energy, but it's not dramatically more. And ultimately, the whole point is really about a tipping argument anyway. You're just tipping electrons out of their condition. So you hit an electron once, okay, and move it from this position to this position. It wants to move back because there's a proton here that's gotten lonely because the electron moved away. And if you hit it quick enough, though, it doesn't get to move back, and you move it further away, and it gets far enough away where it forgets who the proton was and it's chasing some other bitch. And that's really the photoelectric effect. Particles completely explain it. Simple, no mush, no spins, no ESP particles, no superpositions, no antiparticles, no positron-y bullshit. No, none of that crap necessary. Alright, so anyway, now that's enough of an argument. But will any of these points raised be at all addressed by anyone ever, is the question. Will a physicist defending the conventional theory ever address what polarization is? And account for the fact that what he has to admit, even if he's going to call it something wacky like the amplitude of the electric field or some kind of horseshit, he has to concede it covers a great deal of distance. That polarization is a spatial thing. It actually takes up space. And you have to explain how it can only hit one electron. How something 1,000,000 times bigger than an electron can interact with an electron and cause an electron to spew something that is 1,000,000 times bigger than itself. How can an electron make something 1,000,000 times bigger than itself? Anyway, they won't answer the question. So, till it be tomorrow and such.